Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I am your host, Dr. Renee Jordan, and today we're going to take a look at a blog post from November 2020, and it is entitled, "You Have Not Because You Ask Not." While digging for data on Latina and Black women in the information industry, I found myself stuck. Many of the studies and articles recommended and reviewed included data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, but for some reason I could not disaggregate the data to isolate the groups of interest. I did not know what I was doing in this space. I was figuring it out as I went along. I reached out to my professors, and one responded that if I was able to get as far as I did in my attempts, then there should be a way to get what I was looking for if I continued to manipulate the tables, paraphrase. I tinkered, played, and then scrolled down to where it said contact, and I called the Bureau. No one answered, but I left a message. Cody gave me a call back and was able to direct me to a published table that contained more than what I needed and parceled out the number of Latinas and Black women in the information industry. In another iteration of my digging, I wanted to find out the number of Latina and Black women in computer and mathematical occupation. Once again, I found myself stuck. I could only get so far by myself, so I picked up the phone and I called the Bureau. Who gave me a call back? Cody. This time around, we were not as successful with the published data, but he knew who could help. Through a few clicks, Cody directed me to the Contact CPS Current Population Survey, not Child Protective Services, page where I could submit my request for data. Before the day's end, I received an email from Roxana with a table of unpublished data that contained the information that I was seeking for 2019. The next day, I realized I should have asked for the same years as the ones gathered for the information industry. And upon a second request, in what seemed to be an effortless gesture, Roxana sent another email containing unpublished data tables of what I needed to get unstuck in the background of my dissertation proposal. Her email contained disclaimers regarding unpublished data and changes in reporting to reflect the 2010 U.S. Census, all of which I included in the appendix of my proposal. Think about these exchanges. What one person struggles over, another person does every day. If you need help, then go to the source or someone who is resourceful in their work. So, once again, the title of this blog post was "You Have Not Because You Ask Not." And I was able to get data that I was having trouble finding online by asking. Now, one of the reasons I needed to go to the actual U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics was because everyone was quoting them and saying this was in their reports, according to their reports. And I'm like, well, where is the report? I want to see the report. I'll need to see the report for myself so that I'm not just sending the next person who's reading my paper on the same kind of chase that I was on in terms of locating where this data was actually coming from. It's important to get help when you're doing research because it can help you save time. It's not that necessarily you won't ever be able to find the information you're looking for, but sometimes someone has a more direct connection either to the data or to the literature, a broader understanding of the data or the literature to help you along the way. So if you get stuck, ask your professors, ask those who specialize in the actual data, so going directly to different government agencies who collect data to share out with the public so that they know what's happening as it relates to their local, state, as well as national efforts. They actually get paid to go through the data all the time. They get paid to collect it. They get paid to sort through it. They get paid to report on it. So if you're able to connect to someone who does what you're doing one good time for your dissertation, then it can help you along the way. And chances are it's going to be free if it is public information. Part of the reason I wanted to do my study was that I kept finding that when they spoke about Latinas and Black women, they were grouped with data that also included men. So in order to find out what was actually happening with my population of interest, I needed to be able to disaggregate the data, separate them out in order to find out what was really going on in terms of, in this case, the national data on labor statistics as it related to information technologies as well as math and computing occupations. Reaching out to a professor for help can be an email, it can be a phone call. It can also mean scheduling a visit or an appointment if they use Calendly, or asking them when you can get on their schedule. Sometimes it helps to talk things out so that they can get back to you right then and there and help you think your way through your next steps. Now, keep in mind, I didn't just show up and say, hey, where can I get this data? I tried. I made an attempt. I actually tried to get the information myself. I looked at the research that referenced the Bureau of Labor Statistics, went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, found where I could get access to the public data, manipulated the different tables and charts, and made a good attempt at trying to find the information myself before reaching out. Now, why is that important? Because it's something that is good practice. It allows you to extend your skills. Now, in my urban demography class, in my public policy program, we use data that came from the U.S. Census Bureau and information that was already available in the GIS program, Social Explorer, to take a look at different things of interest. We also went to state data as it related to college and career readiness. So I was familiar with going to government websites in order to find data, but I hadn't been to this one, and it was slightly different. And as a result, I was able to further develop my my data searching skills as a result of my curiosity, my persistence, and interest in getting an update on the population of interest that included data that was disaggregated just about them, so Latinas and Black women. So after I made my attempts and I was able to tell my professor what I tried to do, and they were able to encourage me to keep going and reach out and see how far I can get with help. So it's one thing being able to do something on your own and going as far as you can. It's another thing to reach out for help and get even further. And as a result, I was able to get the information that I needed to move forward, information that I could tell others about, and share how I got it so that they could be helped along their way. Nowadays, it's interesting that some websites don't even have phone numbers. But when I saw that there was a contact phone number for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I didn't hesitate. I picked up the phone and I dialed the number. Now, a long time ago, I used to work for a temp agency. And at that temp agency, I had the occasion to be called for specific jobs that were office related, whether that was office manager, administrative assistant, receptionist, concierge. I even got called in to do different organizing jobs. Someone at a law firm had us to come in and go through files and pull out certain files and stack them in a place in order to streamline their data or their information that they had as hard copies. So I know a lot of random things happen when it comes to doing work in offices. So when I saw there was a phone number, I picked up the phone, I called, and I asked for help. Now, although no one answered, I left a message. There was a voicemail option, and I received a call back. And as a result, I was able to resolve my first question. And then, because I went through that exercise before, once I got stuck again, I knew what to do. I picked up the phone and I called. And I was able to get in contact with the same person who knew who could help us once we figured out the both of us were stuck and couldn't get the information that I was looking for. So that second attempt at looking for computer and mathematical occupation data on Latinas and Black women was able to get resolved because Cody knew who to get in touch with. It's important to network, not just with the people who are at your school, but also amongst those who do research, amongst those who collect data, amongst those who know where to find data. And these people can also include not just your professors, but those who work in the government as well as the industry. Find out where do they get their data to help inform their decisions, and that can be of use to you when you are working on your dissertation or thesis to help you along your way. Don't hesitate to ask. Reach out for help, whether it's a phone call or email, and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. I was able to find this, that, and the third. When I take a look at the scholarship and the literature, they list your organization as a reputable place to obtain data, and I'm interested in strengthening my work by being able to reference the data that you have already collected. Now, keep in mind, government agencies are your tax dollars at work. You or someone you know has already paid for this information. So reach out and get it. It's yours. You help to pay for it and help yourself along your way. Your tax dollars and the tax dollars of those in your community are at work. So turn that around to help it work in your favor by reaching out to these places in order to help you along your way. Keep in mind, what you might be struggling with can be much easier for someone else, not because they're so much more smarter than you, but because they have access. They know who to call, they know who to email, they know who to contact, who can provide you with the information that's readily available to you if you ask. They didn't charge me for that data that they shared with me. Pulling the data was easier for them because they had access to it. It is routine for them. They work with the data. They take a look and they create those tables that are publicly available based upon the different queries that they felt would be important to those who wanted to know. Now, because I wanted to know a little bit more, it took a little bit more for them to get me that second set of data, but they did it, and they did so willingly because they had it, it just wasn't published. And once they gave it to me, they provided me with the text that set the parameters for it so that other people would know, hey, you can reach out and ask for it, but keep in mind that this was based upon a ad hoc request, if you will, as opposed to the tables that are readily available for everyone to have access to. So with all that being said, I want to encourage you to leverage the expertise in your work. So by going directly to the source and not just quoting someone else saying, oh, this report came from the Department of Labor Statistics or from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, I was able to have a stronger argument that said, I obtained the data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it was secondary data still, but it was secondary data that was provided directly to me, as opposed to quoting the data that is in someone else's book chapter. I was able to get it directly for myself. And that way I could also get an updated version. Perhaps the information that I was looking for is in someone else's article, but it's old. And you want to make sure that the data that you're referencing in your study is as current as possible if we are talking about contemporary data. Now, if you're referencing data that has been provided over a long period of time, or you want to state what the data was in terms of 50 years ago, 25 years ago, 10 years ago, that's one thing. But as much as possible, you want to make sure that you get the most up-to-date information as possible. Now, keep in mind, if you are referencing references, make sure that the person you're quoting is the originator of the text. This is what I mean. If you quote someone from another article or a book chapter, make sure they're the ones who originated the text that was there. Take a look around. Do you see parentheses where they are actually referencing someone else? If you do, it's not that you shouldn't quote that person, but it would be better if you went directly to who they were referencing and see if they were the ones who originated the text that was presented. Keep in mind, when people paraphrase things or they're quoting someone and it's taken out of the complete context, it might have a difference in meaning. Did that person actually mean what they were saying as it related to what another individual referenced of them? For example, I use Sylvia Wynter in my dissertation and her and what she had to say about the cultural model approach. So not only did I reference her, but I talked about how she used the cultural model approach and how I was going to use it for my work and take on a different spin as it related to my discipline, which was information technology. She was using it as a reference to Black education studies. So I made sure that while I talked about the cultural model approach, I said, hey, she was looking at Black education studies, whereas I'm looking at it from my discipline, which is information technology. That way, when someone reads my work, they're not going to be confused and say, well, that's not what Sylvia Wynter was talking about. No, this is how it's similar. This is how it's different. And as a result, I'm showing how I am applying what someone else said to my work. And that allows the reader to make decisions for themselves. They can take what you say and run with it. They also can go back to the source and say, well, let me take a deeper dive and look for myself at what Sylvia Wynter had to say about the cultural model approach. Now, to go back to these government agencies that have data that's readily available for you to view, here is a list of 20. I'm not going to describe what data they actually have in store. What I am going to do, I'm going to encourage you to look for yourself, do the work of a scholar, and do the research. So we have the U.S. Department of Education. Next, we have the Census Bureau, followed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which I've mentioned already, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, National Institute of Health, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Energy, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Food and Drug Administration, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Bureau of Economic Analysis, Federal Reserve System, National Transportation Safety Board, U.S. Geological Survey, Department of Agriculture, Department of Homeland Security, National Science Foundation, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and finally, the Office of Management and Budget. Now, there are more sites that you could explore, and think about it. If you have these available at the national level, see if you can find them at the state level. What data can you find that's closer to the population of interest that you're talking about specifically? Are you speaking on the population on a national level, or are you interested in the data at the state level? Are you interested in data provided at the local level? See what data is out there for you to explore. Some people may choose to do their dissertation or thesis on secondary data. Others may use the secondary data, meaning data they did not collect, but someone else collected, and now they are going to use it for their work in order to inform their work. And so that's what I did. I used the secondary data to make my argument to say, hey, this is what's happening as it relates to those who are in tech-saturated industries, when we're talking about information, when we're talking about computing and mathematic occupations. And as a result, I was able to take a look at it on a national level, because when I recruited my participants, or my contributors as I called them in my dissertation, I recruited them from across the nation. They were not limited to a specific state. Now, on the other hand, I did use local data. So I pulled information from the school that was down the street from my home in order to find out the population composition of that school. I also pulled data from the county to find out how were students performing on the technology assessments. Now, I looked at technology assessment data not only for the county in which I live, but at one time I looked at technology data for this county that I used to work for, and it informed me as far as my interest in seeing students develop technology and digital literacy skills. I didn't realize what the actual numbers were until I looked for them. I had an inkling, I had a curiosity. I saw that people had different skill levels, and I was just wondering, hey, I know that they're supposed to take this technology assessment in 8th grade. What do the results look like? And the results were outstanding, meaning they stood out. I'm not going to sit here and read my dissertation to you. I am going to encourage you to go and look at it for yourself, as well as check out what those technology assessments are in your community. Now, testing has changed and you might not be able to get the current year, but see what's out there. I want to encourage you to reach out for help after you've done all you can. So take a look, dig deep, be able to communicate to the person that you've reached out to help you what you have tried to do already. That way they can lead you based upon your attempts, or they can share more information with you as far as where you can go to obtain the information that you're looking for, or perhaps give somebody a call at the actual agency and see if they're able to get you on the right track or provide the information to you directly. Use your tax dollars. These agencies are in place because people are paying taxes, and those government agencies, whether they are local, state, or national, are in place to not only collect the data for themselves so that they can keep track of what's happening, but to share it back with the public so that they know how things are coming along. There are many different agencies. There are many different places that provide information in terms of data, not only federal governments, but also nonprofits. And some industries will provide data as well so that you can see why they are approaching things the way they are in order to move forward in their mission and vision. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. Feel free to share this episode with someone you know who's looking for data to help them along their way. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I am your host, Dr. Renee Jordan. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share, rate, and review the podcast to help it become more discoverable. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.